Now, what I mean by that is I've been in this regiment for the last several months and came to recognize that if I took care of my body and worked out, I didn't have to take as many meds. Fancy that, right? So, by doing that, I'm mindful of myself. But when I come home after working out and eat 8 pieces of chocolate, and ice cream, I begin to lose that mindfulness of myself. The outcome of me losing the mindfulness of myself is ill health. I begin to lose it. I begin to lack the sense of gratitude for my very being, for my own existence. I'm not grateful for my own existence. I remember as a kid watching a movie from Australia. I don't know what it was called, but it was the indigenous population just walking around in the walkabout, I guess they call that. And they came, I think it was either a snake or an iguana or something, and it was dinner. And the person stopped and thanked the earth for providing that dinner. And that scene has always been in my mind, that how odd that was. You know, I don't thank Colonel Sanders for Kentucky Fried, but maybe I ought to. Be grateful for where I obtain my sustenance. Be grateful of clean air. Would I be grateful of clean water? If I had that sense of gratitude, and our whole culture had that sense of gratitude, would we be so inclined to be unconscious or permissive about pollution of the water that we drink? If we could live out of that sense of gratefulness. So I could think, okay, it's Thanksgiving, pilgrims, you know, the founding of our nation, and how do I have a sense of gratefulness for the founding of our nation? Indeed, if I believe it is a special entity, a special place, then I buy into, because of my own personal experience, or maybe the rhetoric of this is the greatest nation, but then I have enough sense to say, well, it's maybe has potential to be a great nation, or is it, into that kind of conversation. Is my lack of energy to defend what's good about this nation, to be passionate about defending what's good about this nation, is that because I don't have the capacity for gratefulness of those who have gone before me to create this place? So not only does gratitude in the sense of gratefulness about here and now, mindful of self, mindful of others, mindful of the present environment, this sense of gratitude reaches back in history, and there's an experience that I'm grateful that some people in their lives sacrificed their time, their lives, their energy, so that something good could happen in the future for others, and that other in the future that something good happened for is me. Somebody sacrificed their life in history so that something good, so that my life would be better. And paying attention to the move to amend, and presented there. So I was putting some thoughts together for that, and I realized in doing that research that we Unitarians, we've got something really special in our history that I don't think we're mindful of. And it's this. I mean, we watch, more of the conservative Christian. If there's a movie out that kind of goes against that, people pick it, that the Pope doesn't like it. The whole world knows the Pope doesn't like this movie for whatever. That's the good or bad. It's just that here's the faith tradition that this particular group of people have, and they feel that faith tradition is being shown a lack of respect, and they say it with passion. Pick it. March. They'll boycott commercials so shows aren't shown. I mean, they have an attitude about if you attack the formation of their faith or their faith conviction. Or in Islam, the image of Muhammad, because there's a passion attached to it. And I'm thinking, are there any core tenets of Unitarian Universalism that if somebody made fun of or attacked, that would move me to pick up a picket sign and go out and picket? That would move me to change my buying habits? That would move me to call a congregational meeting and saying, if you're a member of this church, because you own this church now, because you own this church and you belong here, We're going to go out there and say something to that county commission. Look at them, whatever it is they're doing. What would it be? So I'm reading in preparation, and it's kind of in my head anyway, but then it really occurred to me as I was reading that in the beginning of the Unitarian history, the separation of church and state is central to who we are as Unitarians. It's as important to us as the Trinity is to Trinitarians. It's as important to us as the image of Muhammad is to the Islamics. It's that important to the Muslims. The separation of church and state, we have groups of people right now saying, that's not in the Constitution, that's not in the Bill of Rights. I'm not out marching. So what's going on with a group, and I'm wondering if it's about, it maybe sounds simple, is it about the capacity to be grateful for the people in the 16th century who stood up and said, in order for us to exist, in order for us to be free, in order for us to think, we need the separation of church and state. Because where there is no separation of church and state, we die. We don't live. Our existence doesn't happen. Central. And then I thought, well, maybe there was a moment of being sinfully proud. Can you be sinfully proud and it be a good thing? I don't know. Proud that I am in a tradition that at its center and in its foundation there's a separation of church and state. I felt like Stephen Colbert running around saying, we won, we won, we won. We got our central religious tenet in the Constitution. Yay! We did it, and they're still trying to do it. No, that's bad, isn't it? But it's true. It's true. The formation of this nation, the separation of church and state, is central. And along with that was the freedom of assembly. That's Unitarian. The same person who had the idea of the separation of church and state said, wait a minute, we need to be able to assemble and say anything we want. Have any conversation we want. Now, we take that for granted, but that wasn't so back then. And the generation after the people that put this in place, who were coming together freely and saying anything they wanted, knowing that their grandparents and their great-grandparents were murdered because of that, they had the sense of gratefulness that they were able to be free to speak. Is it the distance, historical distance from that moves me to passivity, not to defend those things that are central to our faith and central to our nation? I like that we won. I do. I like that. Because that gave us the freedom to be who we are. They also, in the Unitarians, and I'm struggling with this concept of tolerance, and as a good you use, we say that, wait a minute, tolerant means, I've got myself over here and I'll tolerate you even though you're different, and that good that we're tolerant. We have that. So we're going to create a space that's a tolerant space that other people can come, but we're really not of each other, but we'll tolerate. And I'd like to reframe that, and maybe we can talk about that and wrestle around about what that might mean. But I think what we really do is we don't create a space of tolerance when we're at our best. We create a space where we can become. That's what we create. A space of becoming. That's what the founders of our nation did when they used the Unitarian faith stance of separation of church and state, freedom of assembly. See, we got that so concentrated and connected to the Constitution and Bill of Rights, it's hard to disconnect it and put it into early Unitarian thought. But that's where it came from. What those principles and what those ways of life, that way of life does, is it creates space for us to simply become who we are. If there's political, religious, and economic tyranny, we don't become who we would naturally become. We conform so that we can survive and eat and get a job and buy and pay taxes. We need to do some of that negotiation, but the danger is we lose ourselves in that. But if we've got a place where we can become whoever and whatever we are. Do you remember a time when, in my lifetime, when thinking about college, people said, don't pick a major. Go the first 2 years of college and take a bunch of different stuff, see what you like, and then pick a major. How many of you remember that? That was standard thinking. What did? In my lifetime, I said 56, in my lifetime. In my lifetime, that was standard thinking. That doesn't exist anymore. We're programming kids in the junior high school. Well, they can't become under those conditions. We're not inviting them to become who their inclinations are, to explore the world, to see what they like. We're programming them to fit into categories because that democratic space that we work to create through our faith tradition is shrinking. That's what's happening. So we who own this church, we who maybe facilitate this church, we who gather together to create this space, to nurture this space, to maintain this space through time with our thoughts, our labor, our gifts, our monies is what we do so that this space of becoming can exist. We have a heavy responsibility. And somehow in this Thanksgiving, I want to connect all of that with the capacity to have that sense of being grateful for existing, being grateful for the people that went before me, who spent their life energy to create this place, maintain it, and to dedicate my spiritual life so that I can live out of that sense of gratefulness, so the sense of purposehood, servanthood, and the sense of generosity become normal attributes of my character. To dedicate my life to stop who I am and to get a sense and the attitude of gratefulness and to live out of it and to relate to you and to relate to myself from that sensation of being grateful that I'm here and exist. This Thanksgiving, let's do that.